I feel like I've been slapped by polygamy.
Oh.
It's hard not to be bitter about the fact that I bought off on it and did it, because in the end, in the last moments of it.
Welcome back to the channel. It's Friday, May 3rd, 2025. And if you watched the latest episode of Sister Wives, you know there's a lot to be discussed. Kody Brown sat down with Robyn for an emotional chat in which he revealed that his relationship with his kids was finally getting better. But is that truly the entire story? Just last week, Mykelti and Tony shared their opinion on this episode in a Patreon chat. Having just seen it themselves, they approached it with a new and unfiltered eye. And what they uncovered presents a whole different picture of Kody's family life. Here's the catch. Although Kody insists things were improving at the time, Mykelti conceded that his relationship with his children has actually deteriorated, particularly since the family relocated from Utah and settled in North Carolina. What happened? In their telling, a large portion of Kody's communication with the rest of the family previously went through Mykelti and Tony. After they moved away from playing the roles of go-betweens, no longer acting as mediators between Kody, Christine, and the siblings, Kody more or less quit trying. And then the devastating loss of Garrison. Following his death, any last threads of relationship between Kody and his children appeared to disintegrate entirely. So, whereas Kody has a story of growth, Mykelti is holding the truth to account as she sees it, and it's not palatable. She maintains that if her dad really wants to fix things, it begins with one thing: accountability. Without holding himself accountable for his brutal words and deeds, particularly the mean comments made on television, there can be no way forward, she thinks. It's not about the other wives. It's not about family politics. The alienation Kody is going through is all his own, according to Mykelti. His children are hurting, not just by what he's accused them of, but also by the callous things he's said to and about their mothers. So where do the family go from here? Can bridges ever be mended? That is entirely up to Kody, and whether or not he's willing to confront the truth behind the broken ties.
I hate it when my dad lumps all of his kids into one group and says, like, all of my kids blank, all of my kids this, my kids all whatever. I hate it. I wish that he would distinguish.
Just when you thought things couldn't get any more complicated for the Brown family, there's another twist. Even though Kody has been claiming on the show that his relationship with his children has been getting better, Mykelti recently came forward to say that things have actually gotten worse since Garrison's untimely death. In fact, she made it very clear that the relationship between Kody and his children has gotten much worse, leaving one wondering what's really going on behind the scenes. And now Kody seems to be giving up, at least on one of the most important relationships in his life, his daughter Truly. In a dramatic turn of events, Kody and Christine were in a Utah courtroom yesterday, where they reached a settlement agreement over child support. Although the terms of the deal have not been disclosed, the mere fact that a settlement was reached indicates a dramatic change, particularly when you take into account Kody's earlier legal stance. Let's roll back a little. Last September, Christine sued for parenting time, child custody, child support, and paternity. To that, Kody responded with a countersuit, a move that seemed baffling considering his limited engagement in Truly's life. Why struggle so hard when he barely showed up? At the time, it seemed petty, almost vindictive. Some speculated, myself included, that Kody's motivation had little to do with fatherhood and more to do with avoiding child support payments. But now it seems reality has caught up with him. Cut forward to this week, Kody not only accepted the settlement, but also filled out a child support worksheet and a statement of compliance. This requires both him and Christine to have to turn over financial information, tax returns, employer pay stubs, or 1099s, and fill out an elaborate worksheet using Utah's official support guidelines. And here's where it gets juicy. Truly is 15 years old now. That's an important age in custody cases because by now, She gets to have a voice in where she wants to reside. So even if Kody wanted to fight for more visitation or joint custody, he'd have to demonstrate something he obviously hasn't: an ongoing healthy relationship with his daughter. In the latest Sister Wives episode, Kody actually admitted he doesn't have a strong relationship with his kids. He attributed it to not living in the same home and said everything goes through the mothers, especially Christine. Was that all just building up to a legal appeal? It seemed very much like he was getting himself ready to appeal using parental alienation. But the court sees things differently when a teen is old enough to speak for herself. And from what we've seen and heard, Truly has every reason to prefer living with Christine. The emotional bond she shares with her mother and sisters is undeniable. Let us not forget, Truly's health crisis all those years back was supposedly mismanaged by Kody. There were even accusations against him of failing to keep her insured at the time. Christine was left all alone to shoulder the emotional as well as the financial costs. Throughout her childhood, Truly has relied heavily on her older sisters, Aspen, Mykelti, Gwendolyn, and Isabel. These women played enormous roles in assisting Christine in raising her, particularly when Kody was not around. Their relationship is deep, and to think that any judge would compel Truly into a relationship with a largely absent father would be unrealistic. If this case had proceeded to trial, Kody could have ended up in very hot water. The public shaming of his inaction, his failure as a father, and even historical neglect could all have been made public. So now the question is, did Kody settle because he realized he didn't really have a case? Or because he finally wants to do the right thing for Truly? Either way, the legal chapter could be closing, but the emotional fallout isn't done yet. Another force strongly against Kody is Truly's strong bond with her family in Utah. She has a solid support network around her. Her mom, Christine, sisters, and even her stepfather, with whom she has a warm relationship. That kind of emotional support is hard to shake, and the family just keeps expanding. Aspen, Truly's older sister, just recently revealed that she's pregnant with her first child, with Mitch. On a local Fox affiliate's Mother's Day segment, Aspen happily announced the news while highlighting gift suggestions for moms. By the looks of it, she's already a few months pregnant, maybe 6 or 7. So, congratulations to Aspen and Mitch. For Truly, that's even more reason to remain close to home. Her family is growing right there in Utah. But whereas Truly is loving it with her brothers, Kody's presence in Truly's life feels increasingly like an afterthought. In the same Patreon conversation, Mykelti and Tony revealed just how infrequently Kody ever actually comes to Utah. As Tony describes it, it's partly due to Robyn. He explained the way she heaps emotional burdens upon Kody whenever he travels, feeling guilty leaving her and his children, and presenting each return visit as drudgery rather than duty. Tony even called it the cost of going. The idea that Kody gives an emotional cost each time he attempts to reach out to his other children. It has meant that his visits with Truly have been sporadic and often facilitated by other family members instead of his own. So how intimate is their relationship then? The unfortunate reality is, it isn't. Kody's interactions with Truly are sparse, and even on holidays, she seems to be forgotten. Mykelti relayed a poignant anecdote. This year's Valentine's Day, Kody gifted his daughter Ariella a decadent vanity, but when Mykelti asked if Truly had been given anything like it, the response was a flat and heart-wrenching no. Not even a card or a call, Mykelti reported, and she didn't stop there. Mykelti also took issue with the fabricated myth that Kody ever spent lavish things on his daughters on Valentine's Day. In fact, she claims it wasn't until the family started making money that they even received little presents, plain boxes of chocolates at best. At the same time, Kody has boasted openly about the cash he's invested in Coyote Pass. his much talked about property venture. But McKelty wasn't buying it. She reminded him that while Kody brags about land investments, he never in the past helped finance his own children. She said it straight out. You relied on all your wives to pay for your kids. Until this week, Kody had never once been legally required to provide financial support to his children. But now that there's a new court settlement, he's finally being held responsible, at least as far as Truly is concerned. According to Utah law, both parents are statutorily responsible for supporting their minor children until they reach the age of 18 or they graduate from high school, whichever is later, and that support isn't discretionary. It's to be used directly for the child's benefit. So, while Kody has been dancing around financial duty and rewriting the script for years, the court has finally weighed in. His days of evasion are numbered, at least as far as Truly is concerned. The big question now, will this prove to be the wake-up call he needs to finally get his act together and be there for his daughter, or merely another chapter in a chronicle of lost opportunities? In Utah, child support laws are as plain as day. Once a court order is issued, both parents are legally obligated to abide by it, no exceptions. Even if one parent hasn't made their required payments, the other can't legally refuse parenting time, and vice versa. If either of them disregards the rules, the other can submit a motion to enforce the order, which can result in fines, legal judgments, or even incarceration. Now that the court has formally put the support agreement in writing, Kody Brown has a legal obligation to pay each month. If he doesn't, Christine can ask the court to enforce payment. And because of Utah's enforcement laws, it could become serious in a hurry. The state permits custodial parents to work with Utah Recovery Services to recover unpaid support. More importantly, if Kody's unpaid balance ever exceeds $10,000, or he skips payments for over 2 years, he could be charged with felony criminal non-support under Utah Code Section 76-7-201. So, what does that mean? It means for the first time, Kody is not in charge. He does not get to decide whether or not to contribute based on his feelings about Christine or how close he feels to Truly. The law now controls him. For Christine, this has to be validating and draining. After years of being the sole financial and emotional support of her children, in all but name, the court is now standing behind her at last. She's no longer left begging for assistance or holding on to promises that don't keep. She now has legal weapons and actual enforcement at her disposal. Let's not lose sight of the emotional cost to Truly. She's been growing up with the inconsistent presence and support of her father. She's had to wade through the pain and confusion of being treated like an afterthought by someone who should have been a steady in her life. And quite frankly, that's sad. Kody's long-term behavior has been one of control. When a wife refused to submit and go along with him, he withdrew, not from her, but from her children as well. He wielded his presence and resources as ammunition, punishing women like Christine for wanting to be independent by denying them the influence of his presence as a father. And then, predictably, blamed the mothers when those relationships with the kids deteriorated. But fatherhood isn't a conditional clause. Kody doesn't get to be a dad just when things are going his way. That's his responsibility, and his alone. Christine's made that clear from day one. She's never attempted to come between him and the kids. In fact, she's said over and over again that she wants him to have a relationship with them. But, as she wisely noted, she can't make him be a father. That's something he has to decide on his own. With the legal framework in place now, perhaps, just perhaps, Kody will understand that fatherhood is not something he can opt out of, that it's an obligation, one the courts will no longer permit him to do without. So now it appears he's finally being compelled to settle on a settlement. Under Utah law, that will equate to one thing for certain: he'll be paying child support. With Truly reaching the age of 18 in 3 years, he's committed for at least that time. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. We still don't have an idea whether he'll be asked to pay back child support for the last 4 years. Is Christine receiving a lump sum payment for all the time that he didn't contribute? That's to be determined. What we do know is that in Utah, a settlement agreement is not a handshake agreement. It's a binding contract. It lays it all out: custody, visitation, or parent time, and money. And here's the kicker: once both sides agree, a judge must sign it off. Once signed off, it can be enforced by law. If either party does not comply, the courts can intervene. These agreements are comprehensive, and they're often made public. That means we may actually get to see the nitty-gritty details someday. Intrigued? So are we. But let's examine why this may be occurring now. Truly's age might well be a big consideration. At almost 15, her opinion carries more weight in the eyes of the court than it might have when she was younger. Chances are she's made it pretty clear. She wants to live with her mom. Honestly, that's likely for the best. Being with Christine and her stepdad does seem to provide her with more stability and emotional support. Here's where the emotional turn comes in. While it's nice to see him finally held accountable, let's not forget how long he's been dodging responsibility. There's certainly a feeling of too little, too late here, and just when you think the drama is reaching its height, something else comes up. The timing of all this agreement is somewhat suspicious. The following episode discloses Garrison's tragic death. Suddenly, the whole thing starts to fall apart in the family. Cody's relationships with many of his children break down, and some have severed contact entirely. It raises questions. Is this agreement merely another PR stunt? Is he attempting to manipulate the story before the emotional fallout enters the public arena? Now, for the first time ever, he's facing an actual consequence. If he doesn't pay, jail time is actually a possibility. That's a sense of accountability he's never experienced before. So now, the question becomes one for you. Now, for the first time ever, he's facing an actual consequence. If he doesn't pay, jail time is actually a possibility. That's a sense of accountability he's never experienced before. So now, the question becomes one for you.